Coming up today on Rickety Roddy, it's time to start our defence of our Champions League here at Benfica and two tricky fixtures to start things off. We've got Monaco at home and Chelsea away. Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 101 of Rickety Roddy here on Shaun Does FM with Benfica. I hope you're doing well and come up day. We start our campaign to defend the Champions League here at Benfica. First up we take on Monaco at home. Of course last season a really close game against these guys in that second round of the knockouts, if we get past them in a penalty shootout. And then off the back of Chaves away in the Portuguese League, which we hopefully can win with a rotation team, we'll take on Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, the current Club World Cup champions, both in game and in real life. So hopefully you guys are looking forward to that, but it comes off the back of the end of last week. We thankfully picked up some wins and a couple of domestic games off the back of our Super Cup shocker to start this season, being near Porto and Vitória Guimarães. So if you missed that one, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner. Also, a little bit of transfer business during the course of that episode. Just played one game since then and had deadline day. First things first, we did nothing on deadline day, so still all the same players that were here at the end of last week. Haven't quite been able to get rid of Andre Lunin just yet, but we played for Monaco off camera and thankfully picked up a 3-1 win goal here to a good start thanks to Mateo Monsalvo, and then Rodriguez made it 2-0 before halftime. They grabbed one back there in the second half for Acer, but Piskunov finally back in the goals there to make it 3-1. So it does mean that currently we've picked up maximum points in our Liga Portugal games. The only problem is that so have Braga, but thankfully our goal differential is a bit better than theirs and already bit of a get back to the likes of Sporting and Porto. So it's looking like here a little bit of a two-horse race early in Liga Portugal, but quite similar to what was last season. Hopefully can build a gap on top of the league here domestically before we get into the knockouts, hopefully, of the Champions League later this season, which we do start our defence of in today's episode. In a big game up first, a big couple. We've got Monaco, who pushed us really close, as I said, in the second round of the Champions League last season. They beat us 3-0 away from home. Thankfully, we did the job by the same scoreline back at our place, which is where this game is going to be playing the league phase. Hopefully, that's a sign that we can get off here to a good start. Gaisca Garitano is still in charge there with his 4-2-3-1. To be fair, in terms of the key players and the vice-captain, it looks pretty similar to the team that we took on the knockouts last season. So hopefully we show up here for this home game and can get off to a good start. They currently actually sit on top of Ligue 1 point clear of PSG. They've just dropped points in one game. It was a draw against Strasbourg, so are going quite well, and they did actually not beat PSG. I thought that might have been that loss there for them. They lost to Lille, but are sitting there on top of Ligue 1. So to be fair, this is a pretty tough game for us first up, especially with what happened in the knockouts last season still fresh in our minds. And unfortunately, a couple of injuries as well. Obviously, Mateus Henrique not quite back yet from that pulled calf muscle he suffered at the end of last week, still out for 5 to 10 days. And also, in those league games off camera, it might have even been in training, Aiden Kalafatoglu, a hernia, he's out for 3 to 4 weeks, so a couple of big injuries there to both our first choice wingers. So definitely not as strong as we'd like to be here for our first couple of games in the Champions League. So it does mean that we've got Rodriguez at left wing, Matsoso at right wing, and on the bench, Pedroto will cover right wing, and Duncan Hansen, the Kiwi Messi Pocono Whiskey / Bacon, he makes his way up from our youth team as well. A good player that we had come through our youth intake here last season. Let's hope that the Kiwi / part South Korean can do a good job for us if we need to use them. To be fair, average rating is not too good, but I'm pretty sure that's from the youth teams. Haven't played them that much up in the first team so far. Hopefully can do a good job while Kalafatoglu is out for the next month or so. And also, we've got DeRosa up top over Piskunov, who's just been a little bit average so far. Did score in that most recent one over for Monaco, but better say DeRosa in much better form with 4 goals so far this season compared to Piskunov's one. So hopefully we'll still do okay here in this Champions League opener, even with those couple of injuries on the wings there. Definitely a bit of a concern. There's the other fixtures there on the opening match day. Sporting have got Ajax away, of course, 3 teams these days in the Champions League from Portugal, thanks to our win the competition last season. Of course, Braga as well did help out the coefficient by making their way through to the Conference League final, which of course they did lose to our former club in Jan Regensburg last season. It was quite a good win and save for our former teams, just Buxton still lingering in League 2 just outside of the playoffs. To be fair, those guys haven't quite kicked on like the other clubs have ever so slightly. Of course, Jan Regensburg, we did get into the Champions League, but then they dropped down to that Conference League, one of the reasons that we went for this Benfica job, and thankfully it did pay off, albeit a bit sooner than we were expecting, with a Champions League win in our first season here. Let's hope now that we can back it up, because on paper we've got a stronger squad. It's going to be tested here with obviously a couple of fringe players there on the wings, and DeRosa coming in for Piskunov, who is just a bit out of form. Monaco there going with a 4-2-3-1, so to be fair, pretty similar formation to what we're running, and it does look like a pretty similar team, as I said before, to the one that pushed us, especially away from home in that second round last season. To be fair, we did thump them at this arena, but got thrashed it there, so hopefully the home advantage here, it might help us in our first game of the Champions League this season, of course, too. We have not had to play any qualifying games like we did last season, so hopefully here can get into this competition and do well. Of course, a little bit weary off the back of our Super Cups. We have not hit the ground running too well in some big games this season, but thankfully on the attack early here, albeit that pass goes back to Diarra. A long range effort goes looking for the top left corner. Alnautinus tries to stop that one, but he doesn't actually need to be tested. It just goes over the bars on the front foot early, albeit now Monaco here are on the ball, and the All Black Acuna starts to drift out left. Now it's Mawisa there down the left-hand side, going all the way back there to Tinas, who's a fair way outside his box. Now La Fortune will play it to Ben Seguir, the key player, very good in the safe. Salvatolo will try and put that one into the top left corner. In fact, it was Salatovic, but thankfully he puts that one just over the bars of both teams now with some good chances. The shooting boots not quite on target, but it's been pretty even so far. In fact, Monaco are looking like the team on the front foot now, so a bit concerning off the back of what looked like an encouraging start with that first highlight that we did see. Already a half hour into this game, and there's not much going on, albeit now we've got a throw in just inside of the opposition half. Fortea here takes his time on the ball before picking out Nyanzu, who actually switched to the right hand side. Didn't realise that was his preferred side. Maybe that's the reason that we struggled in those Super Cups last week. We played him in the wrong spot, but thankfully good work there from Fortea, who will find Matsoso, who puts that one away. And we're not going to miss Henrique too much potentially if we continue to do that. So thankfully got a 1-0 lead here in this game against Monaco. We eventually find Fortea there, who just gets in behind that left winger. I think that must be there for Monaco, not doing too well, tracking back and from there. He can pick out Matsoso, who can just tap that one home. So good work there down our right hand side. Our first shot on target, and we take a 1-0 lead. And now we've got a set piece going far post here for Nyanzu, who finally scores his first goal of the season. So maybe that's all we need to do with him, was just put him out right like he wants to be, and Renan out left, because of course last season it was Silva we had on that left hand side, and he was very good from set pieces. Maybe now we've sorted out when Nyanzu actually likes to be our centre backs. Last year didn't have quite as much of a preference as Nyanzu does when he isn't appearing at the back. Now we've sorted that out. Hopefully that will get his form going, and now might be a chance for us to actually put this game to bed before halftime, as Nadi will put it in there. DeRosa will try and hit that one home. It goes just over the bar, but a really good finish there to that first half ever since we hit the half-hour mark, which, to be fair, can be a bit of a theme with our tactics here in the save. It does sometimes take us a little while to get going in games, and we certainly did there. That goal that we picked up through Matsoso backed up quite quickly through the Nyanzu one from a set piece that DeRosa actually put in again. That's what he's going to do here early on in the second half. Nyanzu this time, though, can't quite get it on target, but 2-0 up here, and all of a sudden putting all the pressure on this Monaco team. So hopefully can score one more goal, and then maybe can think about bringing on someone like a Hansen at left wing. To be fair, Rodriguez isn't going that well already on a 6.6, so maybe we do that. Now, obviously, Trincao, he can play left wing, but he should be the backup to Haaland, so maybe we bring on Hansen. Obviously, Trincao's probably a little bit better, but he's a Kiwi Wonderkid. We may as well give him some game time while we've got the chance. Duncan Hansen can come on here with our first sub. Rodriguez looking like he's not going too well and about to drop down to a red heart. Hopefully that doesn't backfire. Maybe he can score in his Champions League debut, but on the ball here, just past the hour mark and off the back of that first sub. Nyanzu here getting pressured a little bit, so goes across the face of the field there and picks out a centre-back partner in Renan. Now Haaland there gets in behind quite easily and puts it away already. His third goal of the season there for Jeremiah Hudland, and that makes it 3-0, and surely we'll put this game to bed. So I think now definitely no risk there and bring on Duncan Hansen, but pretty easy work there for Hudland. For some reason, the defenders are not picking him up, which is a bit surprising considering we're using him as a shadow striker. Thankfully, looks like they paid far too much attention there to Matthias de Rosa, and we make it 3-0. And now we can start to make a few more changes here when we feel like we need to. Now, what we might do is take off Matsoso with how weak we are currently at right wing. Piskunov will give some game time to hopefully can find some form off the back of that goal he scored against Famalicão, and we'll put De Rosa at right wing. Pedrodo did come into this game on a heavy workload, so really trying to make sure here no more injuries. Than now with our final stoppage, Forte goes down to a red. Pretty can come on from, and also a few players there in midfield aren't going super well and are on some quite deep yellow hearts. So I think here what we might do is switch things up in midfield. Louis can come on in central mid and Monsalvo as the deep line playmaker there with our last couple of subs. But this looks like it's going to be a pretty comfy win for us in our first game of the Champions League this season. Nyanzo goes looking for a double again, but can't quite keep it down, just like was the case earlier in the second half. But certainly he's looking a lot better since we put him out to the right-hand side here of that centre-back pairing. A lot more threatening in those set pieces. A bit surprising considering that Silva last season did play on left-hand side. Monsalvo does pick up a late yellow card, but thankfully that's a very comfy 3-0 win over Monaco. For a brief period there in the first half, they were the team that were getting on the front foot, but off the back of the half-hour mark, it was complete one-way traffic. A quick high double there to Matsoso and to Nyanzo, and relatively early into the second half, we did make it 3-0, good individual run and goal to Jeremiah Hudland. So that is a good win, backing up what we did against those guys in the second leg of our second round knockout tie in the Champions League last season. And our defence does get off to a good start. Still a few teams to play on this match day. Sporting, they get beaten by Ajax at the moment, the top Portuguese team, and second overall, thanks to our goal differential. Will come back off the back of taking on Chaves in the league and take on Chelsea away from home. So a good start to our Champions League campaign for us here this season at Benfica. Of course, our defence, and before we actually played that Chaves game, this item came up in our inbox. Porto, this might be the reason they're struggling. They're in administration. All transfer funding has been withdrawn. They're £286 million in debt, so maybe that's the reason they're starting to become so rubbish, because that is a whole lot of debt. I thought we were quite bad here at Benfica. Thankfully, did actually win the Champions League last season. Now our balance isn't super bad. It's not great, £85 million in debt, but certainly not as bad there as Porto. So I don't think we'll be improving anytime soon with that financial situation. And getting back to on-field action, we picked up a 2-0 win, as you expect, here away at Chaves. Maybe the scoreline not quite as big as you'd think, but Paredes there picked up both assists there, setting up to Rosa either side of halftime, and we picked up a 2-0 win. Probably should have won that game by a little bit more, but thankfully do get the job done to Stella. A perfect record in Liga Portugal, so do Braga though. So to be fair, that situation has not changed too much off the back of our Champions League opener, but now might be getting tougher for us here as we take on the team that did pick up the Club World Cup managed by Unai Emery in Chelsea. They start off their campaign with a win 3-2 away at Real Madrid. So to be fair, that's a pretty good opening result there for the Blues, especially at the Bernabeu in the Premier League. They do sit top of that as well, albeit on goal differential ever so slightly over Arsenal. It might even be because of the goals scored force. They're definitely a strong team here. This Chelsea one, the best in England at the moment. Let's see how we get on against them in the Champions League, especially away from home injury-wise. A little bit of an update. Thankfully, Matheus Henrique can make his way now onto the bench, albeit isn't quite on a full green heart, but it does mean we can use him if we really need to here in this big away game. Of course, Kalafatoglu is still out for a wee while, and also Habib Diarra, a type hamstring, out for one day. We could play him if we really needed to, but to be fair, Monsalvo has done a pretty good job in that deep line playmaker role anyway, so I think we should be fine without Diarra for this game. You can see there Monsalvo sitting on a 7.22 average rating in his last couple of starts. To be fair, that should not work out too badly, even sitting on a heavy workload. Unfortunately, can't do much about that with that Diarra injury, but also one other change. Piskunov has made his way back in his form of late, is getting a little bit better, and De Rosa is sitting on a heavy workload, having to score those couple of goals to make sure we got past Chaves. So hopefully here Piskunov can re-sign some form. Can our Ukrainian Ginger Ninja, at least in terms of the match engine, will make our way here through this pre-match interview. But this is a tough away day for us first up in the Champions League this season. If we can somehow find a way to pick up some points here, that certainly will take us a long way to making sure we should be up there in terms of a fight for the top 8, just like we were last season, of course. Top things in the league phase and went on to win the whole damn thing. So fingers crossed can do something similar this season, but I actually think our fixtures are a bit tougher on paper than they were in the league phase last season, which is a bit weird considering that we're the defending champions. But this, a good acid test early especially, still with no Kalafatoglu at left wing, as I said before, quite handy that we can now use Henrique if we really need to off the bench at right wing. We'll see if Duncan Hansen will get some game time in this game, but not too sure. But unfortunately, Chelsea on the front foot early, absolutely stacked squad as you expect here from a team that are top of the Champions League. Esteval there will pick up the assist. Hugo Bell has put it away, and to be fair, that might be the first mistake we've seen Diogo Miguel making goal for us here at Benfica since we signed him from Vitória de Guimarães, because that was a pretty average effort. To be fair, the marking isn't that great either, but really looked like he should have got a hand to that one, and it went straight through him. So unfortunately, Chelsea, their first attack of the game, only 4 minutes in, and they take a 1-0 lead to the champions of the world. Might actually be a little bit better than the champions of Europe, which would be frustrating because we go 1-0 down early and haven't done anything inside the first 20 minutes. But now a set piece which Nyanzu gets on the end of and puts it away. Thankfully, that switch of him to the right side of centre-back is working an absolute trick, to be fair. We should have been doing that from the very start. Just silly from me that I forgot to check that. But nice finish there. It goes past Trunin. And we also score with our first shot on target. So thankfully, our set pieces starting to work. It's taken a little while here at Benfica this season, especially with Rui Silva dropping down to the bench. And Nyanzu is on absolute fire. He makes it 2-0. So we're definitely clicking now with our centre-backs here in this Benfica team. Real Madrid, they might be in all sorts of trouble losing to Atletico Madrid, but in fact, it is still 1-1 because unfortunately, there's someone here in the way of the goalkeeper, and that's probably fair, unfortunately. So Nyanzu there does get robbed of a double in this game, but he's starting to look like a little bit of a Rui Silva upgrade like we were hoping from these set pieces. Apart from that, though, Chelsea have been the team who have definitely been all over us so far in this game. A little bit here of fraud watch what we're doing with our set pieces, because apart from that, we've been up to very little, and somehow this one is locked up at 1, or you could argue a little bit unlucky that it's not 2-1 in our favour. But a pretty clear offside there. Apart from that, Chelsea have been all over us. Thankfully, just that first shot that they put past Miguel, so locked up here at 1-1. To be fair, there's not that many players out there on poor rating. There's a couple of our attackers on 6.5. We'll see how they get on in the early stages of the second half, as well as Fortea at right back. But currently, we're not doing too badly. Just would like to get on the front foot a bit more, and a chance here from a free kick. Piskunov, let's see if he can put this one away. That one goes high and wide, so maybe De Rosa needs to come on sooner rather than later. Piskunov just having a little bit of a rough start to the season, and Rodriguez at left wing is kind of fluctuating between a 6.3 and a 6.4. So again, Duncan Hansen might be about to get some game time in the Champions League. Matsoso as well on a 6.6, but definitely here we'll try Hansen at left wing for Rodriguez. To be fair, Piskunov, I thought it dropped down to a 6.4. It's gone back up to a 6.5, but still not a good start to the season for him. We'll bring on De Rosa in his place. Now, I think for now that will do it. We'll leave Fortea out there for a little bit and just see if he can improve that 6.5, because to be fair, so far this season, he has done a pretty decent job. And pretty, we could bring on, got both assists in that win that we did pick up over Chaves, but so far the second half, not up to much apart from that free kick, which did go over the bar. And now might be time for us here to make some more subs. We'll take off here. Matsoso for Henrique, that could be quite a big one, and pretty at right back as well. We'll see if we can get something going there down that right-hand side with both players sitting on some pretty average ratings. Let's hope that might get us going. Still one more sub that we can use. In fact, we'll do it now because Monsalvo has dropped down to a red heart. So I think here, with our limited options on the bench with Diarra sitting on that orange injury, we'll bring on here Luis and deep line playmaker like we did last season, even though this time we're training him as a central midfielder, but still not much happening for us here in the second half. To be fair, we are offering up a lot more in attack according to the stats than we did in that first half, but it seems like this one might end up being a little bit of a board draw at 1-1 because the second half has been up to very little, albeit a late corner. Nadi puts it into the mix. Can't quite pick out Nyanzu. A little bit here of aerial ping pong. Hansen plays it back to Robert Renard, tries to curve it top left corner, but it doesn't test Trubin. So unfortunately, it's still 1-1 Chelsea though, with a chance to make their way out from that. Kone with a shocking back pass though. Trubin comes out to try and claim it, and De Rosa will chip it over him. So that is an absolute gift there from Chelsea. Some poor work there from Kone in defensive midfield. And now we're going to pull things back here a little bit and try and hold on to a pretty lucky 2-1 lead with only 1 minute left here of added time. That an absolute gift. De Rosa comes on. Not too sure if that's actually what's helped us in that situation, him coming on instead of Piskunov, but he is certainly the striker in better form and buries that chance. But this is not great from Kone. Was given here a fair bit of space, but De Rosa just sat there in that little pocket, and for some reason Kone didn't see him and could chip that one away. So that an absolute gift deep into injury time. Let's hope now with that time wasting stuff we can hold on and pick up a massive 3 points, and indeed we can. The champions of Europe, just a little bit better than the champions of the world, albeit they kind of bowled that one there. Did the £1 billion blue bottle jobs out there at Stamford Bridge. That is a big win. Get off there to a perfect start this season with 6 points from our first 2 games, and especially with the quality of teams that we're taking on, that is an absolutely huge result. Obviously, XG gets bumped up big time there with that back pass from Kone. Up until then, it's fair to say Chelsea were the better team, especially in that first half. But thankfully, off back of that goal they scored in the opening couple of minutes, there wasn't too much we actually saw from them there in the match. Genius. That is a big win for us there. Both of those ones in today's episode get off to a hot start in the Champions League. Very good against Monaco. Not so good that time, but the luck goes our way and we pick up a 2-1 win. That certainly makes up for that loss we suffered in the Portuguese Super Cup. Not too sure we can claim the UEFA Super Cup. We just got fresh there by Manchester United, but that is a perfect start. 6 points from 6 in our first couple of games in the Champions League. So a big come from behind the win there at Stamford Bridge to back up our 3-0 win at home against Monaco to start off this Champions League campaign, especially, of course, with the money situation. We get 2.4 million for each of those wins, and it does mean, too, we sit in a pretty nice spot in the Champions League early stages on maximum points, up in third only, behind Ajax on goal differential and Feyenoord for reasons I'm not too sure, but join as well there with the likes of Bayern, Man City and AS Roma. Certainly off to a good start this season in the Champions League, just like we did last season. Let's hope we keep ourselves inside that top 8 again, can make our way straight through to, I think it's actually the round of 16, not the second round. So that is a good episode we've had today, especially with the injuries that we're suffering. By the time we come back for tomorrow's episode, certainly Henrique should be available to start games, and hopefully as well Kalafatoglu won't be too far away. He might even be back because we'll come back and focus again on the Champions League. We've got Aston Villa coming up in our next game in that competition, again away from home, and to be fair, that is a full month away, so definitely should have Kalafatoglu back for that game. And as well as that, we do have a League Cup game as well as a game in the actual Portuguese Cup. We'll see how we play in that, because obviously that was the competition last season. We got knocked out in early, so we've taken on a decent team there. We might come back for that. Otherwise, end of the month, we've got Sporting, who beat us in the Super Cup. So maybe that's the double we come back for in tomorrow's episode, Aston Villa and Sporting, depending on who we get in our first game in that cup, seeing it's the only trophy we haven't won yet here in Portugal. With this Benfica team, definitely want to add that one to our collection this season as well, as hold on to at least the Portuguese League and fingers crossed the Champions League as well, and we'll go off to a good start doing that. So hopefully you guys enjoyed today's episode. Big wins there to start this Champions League campaign. If you did, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up, on the video. And if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well until tomorrow for that Aston Villa game and Sporting or a cup one, depending on who we take on in our first game in that competition. Thank you very much for watching. Keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.